Scene 5. Draw a roadmap. Today we are introducing 3 revolutionary products. Steve Jobs revealing the iPhone. On January 9, 2007, thousands of Mac faithful watched as Steve Jobs delivered an electrifying announcement. Today Apple reinvents the phone. Jobs said as he revealed the iPhone for the first time to the public. Before delivering that headline, however, Jobs added to the drama and suspense when he told the audience that Apple would introduce not 1 but 3 revolutionary products. He identified the first one as a widescreen iPod with touch controls. This met with a smattering of applause. Jobs said the second product would be a revolutionary mobile phone. The audience cheered that announcement. And the third, said Jobs, was a breakthrough internet communication device. At this point, the audience members sat back and waited for what they thought would be further product descriptions and perhaps some demos of the 3 new devices, but the real thrill was yet to come. Jobs continues. So, 3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device and we're calling it iPhone. The audience went wild, and Jobs basked in the glow of nailing yet another product launch that would solidify Apple's role as one of the world's most innovative companies. Jobs draws a verbal roadmap for his audience, a preview of coming attractions. Typically, these roadmaps are outlined in groups of 3. A presentation might be broken into 3 acts, a product description into 3 features, a demo into 3 parts. Jobs' love of 3s can be traced back at least as early as the original Macintosh introduction on January 24, 1984. Appearing at the Flint Center in Cupertino, California, Jobs told the audience there have only been 2 milestone products in our industry, the Apple II in 1977 and the IBM PC in 1981. Today we are introducing the 3rd industry milestone product, the Macintosh, and it has turned out insanely great. Verbal guide spots serve as roadmaps, helping your listeners follow the story. When coaching clients to appear in the media, I always instruct them to create an easy-to-follow story by clearly outlining 3 or at the most 4 main points before filling in the details. When this technique is followed, reporters will often take extensive notes. If the spokesperson misses a point, reporters will ask, "Didn't you say you had 3 points? I heard only 2. A verbal roadmap of 3 things will help your listeners keep their place. It's well established that we can hold only small amounts of information in short-term or active memory. In 1956, Bell Labs research scientist George Miller published a classic paper titled The Magical Number 7, plus or minus 2. Miller cited studies that showed we have a hard time retaining more than 7 to 9 digits in short-term memory. Contemporary scientists have put the number of items we can easily recall closer to 3 or 4, so it should not be surprising that Jobs rarely offers more than 3 or 4 key message points. As for that, in a Steve Jobs presentation, the number 3 is much more common than 4. Steve understands that the rule of 3 is one of the most powerful concepts in communication theory. Why Goldilocks didn't encounter 4 bears? Listeners like lists, but how many points should you include in the list? 3 is the magic number. Comedians know that 3 is funnier than 2. Writers know that 3 is more dramatic than 4. Jobs knows that 3 is more persuasive than 5. Every great movie, book, play, or presentation had a 3-act structure. There were 3 musketeers, not 5. Goldilocks encountered 3 bears, not 4. There were 3 Stooges, not 2. Legendary NFL coach Vince Lombardi told his players there were 3 important things in life: family, religion, and the Green Bay Packers. And the U.S. Declaration of Independence states that Americans have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not simply life and liberty. The rule of 3 is a fundamental principle in writing, in humor, and in a Steve Jobs presentation. The U.S. Marine Corps has conducted extensive research into the subject and has concluded that 3 is more effective than 2 or 4. Divisions within the Marines are divided into 3. A corporal commands a team of 3. A sergeant commands 3 rifle teams in a squad. A captain has 3 platoons, and so on. If the Marines were kind enough to study this stuff, why should we reinvent the wheel? Go ahead and use it. So few communicators incorporate the rule of 3 in their presentations that you will stand apart simply by doing so. The rule of 3, it works for the Marines, it works for Jobs, and it will work for you. At the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference on June 6, 2005, Jobs announced the switch from IBM's PowerPC chips to Intel microprocessors. Let's talk about transitions, Jobs said. The Mac in its history has had 2 major transitions so far. Begins to outline 3 points. The first one, 68K to PowerPC. That transition happened about 10 years ago in the mid-90s. The PowerPC set Apple up for next decade. It was a good move. The second major transition has been bigger, and that's the transition from OS 9 to OS X that we just finished a few years ago. This was a brain transplant, and although these operating systems vary in name by just 1 digit, they are worlds apart in technology. OS X is the most advanced operating system on the planet, and it has set Apple up for the next 20 years. Today, it's time to begin a third transition. We want to constantly be making the best computers for you and the rest of our users. It's time for a third transition. And yes, it's true, we are going to begin the transition from PowerPC to Intel processors. Emphasis added. Revealing the narrative in groups of 3 provides direction for your audience. It shows people where you've been and where you're going. In the preceding excerpts, Jobs sets the theme of transitions, and we assume there will be at least a third transition because, as Jobs explains, the Mac has already had 2 of them. He also builds the drama with each point. The first transition was a good move. The second was even bigger. By extension, the third must be bigger still. How the rule of 3 can improve your golf game. During a break from writing this chapter, I took a golf lesson from a local coach. Any golfer will tell you that the toughest part of the game is remembering the dozens of small moves that ultimately result in a fluid swing. Posture, grip, takeaway, balance, hinging, weight shift, follow through, and other variables. Problems occur when you think about too many things at the same time. The Marines have found that giving directions in groups of 3 makes it easier for soldiers to follow the directions. So I asked my instructor to give me 3 directives and 3 only to improve my swing. Fine, he said. Today you're going to focus on closing your hips, shifting your weight to the right side on the backswing, and making a full follow through. So think hips, shift, follow through. Hips, shift, follow. That's it. The instruction worked wonders, and since that day my golf game has improved considerably. The rule of 3, good for presentations and good for golf too. Apple's three-legged stool. Apple's three-legged stool. At the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference in September 2008, Jobs displayed a slide of stool with 3 legs. As you know, there's 3 parts to Apple now, he said. The first part, of course, is the Mac. The second part is our music businesses, the iPod and iTunes. And the third part is now the iPhone. Jobs introduced the executives who would speak about the Mac and the iPod business. Jobs would take the iPhone portion himself. As he launched into the iPhone discussion, Jobs once again provided a roadmap for his listeners this time. A roadmap in 4 parts. In a few weeks is going to be the iPhone's first birthday. We shipped our first iPhone on June 29. It was an amazing introduction, the most amazing one we've ever had. iPhone has had tremendous critical acclaim. It's the phone that has changed phones forever, but we have mountains to climb to reach the next level. What are these challenges? The first, 3G networking, faster networking. Second, enterprise support. Third, third-party application support. And fourth, we need to sell iPhone in more countries. After providing that verbal preview of the 4 points he would discuss in more detail, Jobs returned to the first point. So, as we arrive at iPhone's first birthday, we're going to take it to the next level, and today we're introducing the iPhone 3G. This is a remarkably consistent technique in Jobs' presentations. He outlines 3 or 4 points, returns to the first point, explains each one in more depth, and then summarizes each point. This is a simple recipe for ensuring your audience will retain the information you are sharing. The USA Today method. Journalists are trained to distill complex ideas into specific points or takeaways. Read USA Today, America's most popular newspaper, and you will find that most articles condense main points into groups of 3. When Intel rolled out a faster chip called Centrino 2, Michelle Kessler covered it for the newspaper. Kessler outlined 3 specific benefits and explained why each was important, why they matter. Battery life. The best laptop in the world isn't worth much when its battery dies. Intel's new chip features an ultra-low power processor and other energy-saving tools. Graphics. Laptops traditionally use low-end graphics chips, but now 26% have powerful standalone graphics chips, and more people watch movies, play games, and use graphics intensive programs. Wireless Internet. Intel's new chip Live features the latest version of Wi-Fi known as 802.11n. Later this year, it plans to roll out chips using a new wireless internet standard, WiMAX, which can send a signal over several miles. Kessler proves that you can take the most complex technology or idea and describe it in 3 concise points. Ed Bake also writes for USA Today, reviewing some of the latest technology products. After testing Microsoft's new operating system, Windows 7, in its beta or test mode, Bake focused on 3 highlights. Getting around. Icons on the taskbar are bigger and you can arrange them in any way you choose. Security. Windows 7 won't constantly bog you down with annoying security messages every time you try to load programs or change settings. Compatibility. Even as a beta, Windows 7 recognized my printer and digital camera. Bake, Kessler, and other top reporters write the material in manageable chunks to make it easier to read. So does Jobs. He writes the content of his presentation just as a USA Today reporter would review a product. Headline, introduction, 3 points, conclusion. Jobs and Ballmer share a love of 3s. In January 2009, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer opened the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. It was his first keynote speech at the conference, replacing Bill Gates, who had moved on to his philanthropic pursuits. Over 15 years, it had become a tradition for Microsoft to open the conference, and Gates had delivered nearly every keynote. As a presenter, Ballmer was much different from Gates. He exuded passion, energy, and excitement. He stripped his talk of esoteric jargon and technical buzzwords. Ballmer also understood the value of the rule of 3 in providing a verbal roadmap for his listeners. The groups of three just kept coming. Here are a few examples from his keynote. I want to spend time with you talking about the economy, our industry, and the work that we are doing at Microsoft. When I think about opportunities in my mind, I frame it in three key areas. The first is the convergence of the three screens people use every day: the PC, the phone, and the TV. The second major area is how you will interact with your computer and other devices in a more natural way. And the last area of opportunity is what I call connected experiences. Looking back, there were three things that made Windows and the PC successful. First, the PC enabled the best applications and let them work together. Second, the PC enabled more choice and hardware. And third, the Windows experience helped us all work together. We're on track to deliver the best version of Windows ever. We're putting it all the right ingredients: simplicity, reliability, and speed. Ballmer used groups of three no fewer than 5 times in one presentation, making his speech much easier to follow than any of Gates' keynotes. Although there is no love lost between Apple and Microsoft, both Ballmer and Jobs understand that explaining complex technology in language that's easy to follow is the first step to creating excitement among their existing and future customers. The roadmap as an agenda. Jobs kicked off Macworld 2008 with the verbal equivalent of an agenda. There are no agenda slides in the Steve Jobs presentation, just verbal roadmaps. I've got 4 things I'd like to talk to you about today, so let's get started, he said. The first one is Leopard. I'm thrilled to report that we have delivered over 5 million copies of Leopard in the first 90 days. Unbelievable. It's the most successful release of macOS X ever. Number 2 is about the iPhone. Today happens to be the 200th day that the iPhone went on sale. I'm extraordinarily pleased that we have sold 4 million iPhones to date. Okay, number 3. This is a good one too. Number 3 is about iTunes. I'm really pleased to report that last week we sold our 4 billionth song. Isn't that great? On Christmas Day, we set a new record, 20 million songs in one day. Isn't that amazing? That's our new one-day record. So that brings us to number 4. There is something in the air. What is it? Well, as you know, Apple makes the best notebooks in the business, the MacBook and the MacBook Pro. Well, today we're introducing a third kind of notebook. It's called the MacBook Air. Every time Jobs announces a numeral, his slide contained just one image, the number itself. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We will explore the simplicity of Jobs' slide design more thoroughly in Scene 8, but for now keep in mind that your slides should mirror your narrative. There is no need to make the slides complicated. Jobs not only breaks up his presentations into groups but also describes features in lists of 3 or 4 items. There are 3 major breakthroughs in iPod, Jobs said in 2005. The first one is it's ultra portable. 5 GB data on 1,000 songs in your pocket. Second, we've built in FireWire. Jobs explained how FireWire enabled a download of an entire CD in 5 to 10 seconds versus 5 to 10 minutes via a USB connection. Third, it has extraordinary battery life, Jobs said. He then described how the iPod provides 10 hours of battery life, 10 hours of continuous music. This chapter could easily have become the longest in the book because every Steve Jobs presentation contains verbal roadmaps with the rule of 3 playing a prominent role. Even when he's not using slides in a traditional keynote presentation, Jobs is speaking in threes. Jobs kicked off his now famous Stanford commencement address by saying, "Today I want to tell you 3 stories from my life." His speech followed the outline. He told 3 personal stories from his life, explained what they taught him, and turned those stories into lessons for the graduates. What the world's greatest speechwriters know. Ted Sorensen, John F. Kennedy speechwriters believed that speeches should be written for the ear and not for the eye. His speeches would list goals and accomplishments in a numbered sequence to make it easier for listeners. Kennedy's speech to a joint session of Congress on May 25, 1961 offers a perfect example of Sorensen's technique. In calling for a major commitment to explore space, Kennedy said, "First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal. Before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space. Secondly, an additional $23 million together with the $7 million already available will accelerate development of the rover nuclear rocket. Third, an additional $50 million will make the most of our present leadership by accelerating the use of space satellites for worldwide communications. Fourth, an additional $75 million will help give us at the earliest possible time a satellite system for worldwide weather observation. Let it be clear that I am asking the Congress and the country to accept a firm commitment to a new course of action, a course which will last for many years and carry heavy costs. If we are to go only halfway or reduce our sides in the face of difficulty, in my judgment it would be better not to go at all." U.S. President Barack Obama, a fan of Kennedy's speeches, adopted some of Sorensen's rules to make his own speeches more impactful. Here are some samples from Obama's speeches that follow the rule of 3, beginning with the speech that put him on the map, his keynote address at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. "I believe that we can give our middle class relief and provide working families with the road to opportunity. I believe we can provide jobs to the jobless, homes to the homeless, and reclaim young people in cities across America from violence and despair. I believe that we have a righteous wind at our backs and that as we stand on the crossroad of history, we can make the right choices and meet the challenges that face us." As illustrated in this excerpt, Obama not only breaks up his speeches into paragraphs of 3 sentences, but also often delivers 3 points within sentences. When Obama took the oath of office to become America's 44th president on Tuesday, January 20, 2009, he delivered a historical address to some 2 million people who gathered to watch the speech in person and millions more on television around the world. Obama made frequent use of 3s in speech. "I stand here today humbled by the task before us, grateful for the trust you have bestowed, mindful of the sacrifices borne by our ancestors. Homes have been lost, jobs shed, businesses shuttered. Our health care is too costly, our schools fail too many, and each day brings further evidence that the ways we use energy threatens our adversaries and threatens our planet. Today I say to you that the challenges we face are real, they are serious, and they are many. Our workers are no less productive than when this crisis began, our minds no less inventive, our goods and services no less needed than they were last month or last year." Applying the rule of 3. As we've learned, business leaders often prepare for major television interviews or keynote presentations by structuring their message around 3 or 4 key points. I know because I train them to do so. Here is how I would apply the advice from scenes 4 and 5 to prepare for an interview on the topic of this book. First, I would create a headline of no more than 140 characters. Deliver a presentation like Steve Jobs. Next, I would write 3 big ideas, create the story, deliver the experience, and package the material. Under each of 3 ideas, I would include rhetorical devices to enhance the narrative, stories, examples, and facts. Following is an example of how an abbreviated interview might unfold. Reporter: Carmine, tell us more about this book. Carmine: the presentation secrets of Steve Jobs reveals for the first time how to deliver a presentation like Steve Jobs. The Apple CEO is considered of the most electrifying speakers in the world today. This book walks you through the very steps he uses to sell his ideas. Best of all, anyone can learn these techniques to improve his or her very next presentation. Okay, so where would we start? You can deliver a presentation like Steve Jobs, repeat the headline at least twice in a conversation if you follow these 3 steps. First, create a story. Second, deliver the experience. And third, package the material. Let's talk about the first step, creating the story. As you can tell in this example, providing a roadmap of 3 parts creates an outline for a short interview, a much longer interview, or an entire presentation. Your listeners' brains are working overtime. They're consuming words, images, and sensory experiences, not to mention conducting their own internal dialogues. Make it easy for them to follow your narrative. Jimmy V's famous speech. On March 4, 1993, college basketball coach Jimmy Valvano gave one of the most emotional speeches in recent sports history. Valvano had led North Carolina State to the NCAA championship in 1983. 10 years later, dying of cancer, Valvano accepted the Arthur H. Courage and Humanitarian Award. Valvano's use of the Rule of 3 provided the 2 most poignant moments of the speech. Emphasis added. To me, there are 3 things we all should do every day. We should do this every day of our lives. Number 1 is laugh. You should laugh every day. Number 2 is think. You should spend some time in thoughts. And number 3 is you should have your emotions move to tears. Could be happiness or joy. But think about it. If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. Cancer can take away all my physical ability. It cannot touch my mind. It cannot touch my heart. And it cannot touch my soul. And those 3 things are going to carry on forever. I thank you and God bless all of you. Director's notes. Create a list of all key points you want your audience to know about your product, service, company, or initiative. Categorize the list until you are left with only 3 major message points. This group of 3 will provide the verbal roadmap for your pitch of presentation. Under each of your 3 key messages, add rhetorical devices to enhance the narrative. These could include some of all of the following: personal stories, facts, example, analogies, metaphors, and third-party endorsements.